Imagine the giddy excitement of Universal Studios, a place of manufactured magic suddenly shattered. In 2002, a chilling reality unfolded when 14 children mysteriously vanished within its seemingly harmless confines, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and inconsolable families. For 21 years, this enigma festered, a dark cloud over countless summer memories. Then, a breakthrough, a forgotten locked room. Our narrative plunges into the heart of this enduring mystery, retracing the frantic search, the mounting despair, and the lingering paranoia that gripped the park. We will visually explore the sterile corridors of security, the tear-streaked faces of parents, and the chilling atmosphere of a place where childhood wonder turned to terror. The discovery of the locked room acts as our pivotal turning point, igniting a new wave of investigation. What secrets were sealed away? What did this hidden space witness? This is more than a cold case. It's a visceral journey into the unknown, a testament to the enduring power of unanswered questions and the hope that, even after decades, the truth can finally be unearthed from the shadows. This isn't a tale of supernatural occurrences or fictional plot twists, though the events themselves can feel that way. It's a story rooted in the very real, very human experience of loss and the relentless pursuit of answers. Think about your own cherished childhood memories. Perhaps a trip to an amusement park, the thrill of rides, the taste of popcorn, the laughter echoing around you. Now imagine that joy curdling into sheer panic, that sense of boundless fun transforming into an all-consuming dread. This is the emotional landscape we will traverse. The year 2002, at a place designed for escapism and delight, became a turning point for 14 families, a date etched in their minds not with fondness, but with an agonizing void. The sheer number of disappearances occurring within a single, highly monitored environment defied easy explanation and fueled a media frenzy that oscillated between sensationalism and genuine concern. It was a scar on the public consciousness, a whispered cautionary tale that made parents clutch their children a little tighter at theme parks and public gatherings. For over 2 decades, the official investigations yielded nothing concrete, leaving a vacuum where answers should have been, a vacuum that allowed speculation to flourish, ranging from elaborate conspiracies to the grim acceptance of an unsolvable puzzle. The park itself, a symbol of manufactured joy, became tinged with an unsettling aura. A place where shadows seemed to lengthen, and the laughter of children could, for some, carry a faint echo of fear. The narrative of these disappearances is complex, woven with the threads of parental anguish, the tireless efforts of law enforcement, and the pervasive sense of unease that settled over the community. It's about the intersection of carefree childhood adventure and the stark, brutal reality of abduction. The initial response was, as one would expect, a whirlwind of activity. Security footage was meticulously reviewed, witness accounts were gathered and cross-referenced, and every nook and cranny of the sprawling park was scoured. Yet, with each passing day, the hope of a swift resolution dwindled, replaced by a gnawing uncertainty. The media, initially captivated by the sheer drama of the situation, began to shift its focus, and slowly the story threatened to fade into the background noise of other news cycles, leaving the families to bear the weight of their grief and the unanswered questions in relative solitude. This is where our journey truly begins, not just recounting the facts, but delving into the emotional resonance of this unresolved mystery. We will explore the psychological impact on those who were present, the lingering distrust that can arise when a place of supposed safety becomes the stage for such profound loss. The very concept of a theme park, a sanctuary for youthful exuberance, was fundamentally challenged by these events, forcing a re-evaluation of our assumptions about public spaces and the vulnerabilities they might harbor. The passage of time, while dulling the immediate shock, only intensified the enigma. 21 years is a significant span, enough for memories to fade, for evidence to degrade, and for the hope of a breakthrough to become a distant, almost mythical aspiration. Yet the human spirit's capacity for seeking closure is remarkably persistent. It is within this context of prolonged uncertainty and the quiet desperation for truth that the discovery of the locked room emerges not just as a plot point, but as a beacon of renewed possibility. This forgotten space, sealed away and overlooked for over 2 decades, represents a potential repository of clues, a silent witness to events that have haunted so many. It's the kind of discovery that sends ripples through any investigation, injecting fresh urgency and a tangible focus into what had become an amorphous, agonizing puzzle. The very existence of such a hidden space within a meticulously managed public attraction raises immediate questions about security protocols, oversight, and the potential for secrets to be deliberately concealed. This room, therefore, becomes our focal point, the key that unlocks not only potential answers, but also a deeper understanding of the complexities surrounding these disappearances. Our exploration will not shy away from the emotional toll. We will revisit the press conferences where tearful parents pleaded for information, the vigils held in remembrance of the missing children, and the palpable fear that permeated the air at Universal Studios during the initial search. It's a difficult but necessary aspect of understanding the full scope of this tragedy. The contrast between the vibrant, often fantastical world of Universal Studios and the grim reality of lost children is stark and deeply unsettling. It forces us to confront the fact that even in places designed for pure, unadulterated joy, darkness can find a way to seep in. The narrative arc we will follow is one of hope rekindled, of meticulous investigation meeting unexpected discovery, and of the enduring human need to understand, to find closure, and to ensure that such profound losses are not forgotten. This is a journey into the heart of a mystery that has lingered for over 2 decades, a testament to the fact that some stories, no matter how long they remain in the shadows, refuse to be silenced. The locked room is more than just a physical space. It's a symbol of the unknown, a challenge to our assumptions, and the catalyst for a renewed quest for truth. The initial shockwaves of the disappearances in 2002 reverberated far beyond the gates of Universal Studios, leaving an indelible mark on the collective psyche. It was a stark reminder that even in environments meticulously crafted for safety and entertainment, vulnerability can exist. The sheer audacity of 14 children vanishing within a single day in a place teeming with security personnel and surveillance defied conventional explanations and ignited a firestorm of speculation. This wasn't a single, isolated incident. It was a coordinated, or perhaps a series of opportunistic events that overwhelmed the existing security infrastructure and left investigators grasping at straws. The immediate aftermath was characterized by a palpable sense of panic, not just among the families directly affected, but among all visitors and employees. The vibrant atmosphere of the park, usually filled with the sounds of laughter and screams of delight, was replaced by an unnerving quiet, punctuated by the urgent whispers of search parties and the anxious murmurs of onlookers. Every corner of the park, from the bustling queues to the seemingly tranquil themed areas, became a potential crime scene, a place where the ordinary had been violently disrupted. The meticulous review of security footage, the countless interviews with potential witnesses, and the ground-level searches were all part of a desperate, high-stakes race against time. Yet as days turned into weeks and weeks into months, the leads grew cold, and the initial surge of public concern began to wane, leaving behind a lingering sense of unease and a profound, unanswered question. How could so many children disappear from such a visible and controlled environment without a trace? This is the backdrop against which our exploration begins, a story that transcends mere statistics and delves into the human cost of unresolved mystery. The immediate aftermath of the 2002 disappearances at Universal Studios was a crucible of chaos, a period where the veneer of manufactured fun was ripped away to expose a raw, pervasive fear. Law enforcement, armed with the park's extensive surveillance network, initiated an unprecedented dragnet. Think of it like trying to find a specific grain of sand on an entire beach, but with the added pressure of knowing that each passing moment could be the last chance for a child's safe return. Security personnel, normally tasked with guiding guests and ensuring operational smoothness, were redeployed as an auxiliary search force, their familiar roles replaced by the grim urgency of the hunt. Every staff member, from ride operators to concession stand attendants, became a potential witness, their recollections meticulously catalogued and analyzed, searching for any anomaly, any fleeting stranger, any deviation from the predictable flow of park-goers. This intense scrutiny, however, often proved insufficient. The sheer volume of people, the constant motion, and the labyrinthine layout of a sprawling theme park created an environment where an individual or even a group could potentially slip through the cracks. The psychological impact on the park's regular operations was profound. Attendance plummeted as parental anxieties spiked, and the very concept of a family outing to Universal Studios became fraught with a new, unsettling subtext. The park, designed to be a sanctuary of escape, transformed into a focal point of national dread, its iconic imagery now shadowed by the spectre of the missing children. Furthermore, the investigation quickly encountered the inherent limitations of even the most advanced security systems of the era. While CCTV cameras were ubiquitous, their coverage was not absolute. Blind spots, areas obscured by crowds or structures, and the sheer difficulty of tracking individuals across vast distances meant that crucial moments could easily go unrecorded. Imagine trying to follow a single ant through a bustling city square, with thousands of other ants moving in every direction. This technological hurdle was compounded by the human element. Witness accounts, while invaluable, are notoriously subjective and prone to misinterpretation, especially under duress. A fleeting glance, a half-heard conversation, or a mistaken identity could send investigators down unproductive rabbit holes, diverting precious resources and time. The initial frenzy of media coverage, while effective in raising public awareness, also presented its own set of challenges, sometimes distorting facts, fueling unsubstantiated rumors, and adding to the immense pressure on both the families and the investigative teams. This multifaceted challenge underscored the difficulty of unraveling a complex mystery within a dynamic public space where every element, from the architecture to the human element, could either aid or obstruct the pursuit of truth. Building on this, the psychological impact on the families involved was and remains immeasurable. For them, the park was no longer a place of joy and shared experiences. It became a stark monument to their loss, a place forever associated with the moment their lives irrevocably changed. Each ride, each themed area, each familiar landmark likely conjures painful memories of the last time they saw their child, or the agonizing hours spent searching, pleading, and waiting for news. The prolonged absence of resolution meant that the grieving process was perpetually stalled, trapped in a state of limbo where hope and despair often coexisted. This isn't simply about the initial shock. It's about the enduring torment of not knowing, the constant gnawing uncertainty that erodes peace and disrupts the fabric of daily life. Consider the sheer psychological weight of a perpetual what if. A question that echoes through every decision, every quiet moment, and every passing year. The park's vibrant, commercialized environment, so carefully curated to elicit happiness, stood in stark, almost cruel contrast to the profound personal devastation experienced by these families, creating a dissonance that amplified their suffering. Consequently, the park itself had to contend with a damaged public image and the complex task of reassuring visitors while simultaneously cooperating with an ongoing, deeply sensitive investigation. The economic implications of such an event are significant, but the deeper challenge lies in restoring a sense of security and trust in an environment that had become for many a symbol of vulnerability. Security protocols underwent rigorous review and enhanced measures were undoubtedly implemented, though the specifics of these changes often remain proprietary. The goal was to demonstrate a commitment to preventing future tragedies, but the shadow of 2002 lingered, a constant reminder of what could happen when the carefully constructed illusion of safety falters. The narrative of Universal Studios, a brand synonymous with escapism, was now inextricably linked to this harrowing chapter, forcing a delicate balance between promoting its attractions and acknowledging the unresolved pain associated with this period. This duality highlights how even the most polished public spaces are not immune to the harsh realities of crime and the profound impact it can have on both individuals and institutions. Another crucial layer to consider is the societal response and the media's role in shaping public perception. Initially, the story garnered intense, widespread attention, fueled by the dramatic circumstances and the inherent vulnerability of children. However, as the investigation stalled and no immediate breakthroughs occurred, the media narrative often shifted, sometimes to sensationalize speculation, other times to a more subdued, almost resigned reporting of the ongoing cold case. This ebb and flow of attention placed immense pressure on the families, who were forced to relive their trauma with each news cycle, while also grappling with the possibility of their story fading from public consciousness, diminishing the chances of a vital tip emerging. Think about how certain news stories capture the national imagination for weeks, only to be supplanted by the next major event, leaving the original subject to languish in obscurity. The families of the 14 children, however, were not afforded the luxury of forgetting. Their reality remained defined by the absence of their loved ones, irrespective of the media's waning interest. The sustained, quiet dignity with which many of these families navigated decades of uncertainty speaks volumes about their resilience. Finally, this prolonged period of unanswered questions fostered an environment ripe for speculation, ranging from organized crime syndicates to individual predators operating with chilling impunity. The lack of concrete evidence allowed theories to flourish, each offering a potential explanation, but none providing definitive closure. The sheer difficulty in identifying a perpetrator or a motive within such a densely populated and transient environment presented a formidable challenge for investigators. It's a scenario where the absence of evidence, while frustrating, doesn't necessarily equate to the absence of a crime, but rather the extreme difficulty in apprehending the responsible parties. The park, in its scale and complexity, inadvertently provided a canvas for these disappearances to unfold with a bewildering lack of immediate accountability, a stark testament to how sophisticated planning can exploit even the most seemingly secure of public spaces. The ongoing nature of the mystery, therefore, is not just a matter of missing persons. It is a case study in the complexities of investigation, the limitations of technology, and the enduring human capacity to seek truth in the face of overwhelming odds. The prolonged investigation into the 2002 Universal Studios disappearances, or rather the lack of definitive progress, underscored a critical aspect of forensic science, the decay of ephemeral evidence. Unlike the enduring nature of DNA or fingerprints, which can persist for decades under specific conditions, other vital clues are far more fragile. Think of trace materials like fibers from clothing, shoe impressions in specific soil types, or even residues from unique substances. These can degrade rapidly due to environmental factors, sunlight, moisture, repeated foot traffic, or even the meticulous cleaning protocols inherent in a high-traffic public venue. The sheer volume of daily visitors at Universal Studios meant that any subtle disturbance, any minute transfer of material that might have occurred on that fateful day, could have been obliterated within hours, if not minutes, by the subsequent throng of park-goers. This relentless churn of humanity, while essential for the park's operation, acted as a silent, unintentional eraser of potential evidence, presenting investigators with an uphill battle against time and attrition. Furthermore, the concept of opportunity windows within such a dynamic environment became a significant hurdle. Identifying the precise moments when the children were separated from their guardians and subsequently abducted was a complex logistical puzzle. The park's varied attractions, each with its own ingress and egress points, bustling crowds, and sometimes disorienting theming, provided numerous potential scenarios for such separations. Imagine a child momentarily distracted by a street performer, a sudden surge in a queue line, or a brief wander into a less supervised area. Each of these common occurrences, amplified across 14 individuals over a single day, created a multitude of fleeting opportunities for an abductor. Pinpointing the exact sequence of events that allowed for multiple disappearances to occur without immediate detection required an almost impossible level of granular tracking, particularly given the limitations of surveillance technology at the time and the sheer scale of the park. Conversely, the psychological profiling of potential perpetrators in such a scenario presents unique challenges. Unlike crimes occurring in more contained private settings, an abduction within a theme park suggests a perpetrator with a particular modus operandi, someone adept at blending into crowds, exploiting moments of inattention, and possessing an intimate knowledge of the park's layout and operational rhythms. This isn't the impulsive act of a lone individual cornered in a secluded alley. It points towards a calculated approach, possibly involving surveillance of potential targets over time, or the exploitation of specific vulnerabilities within the park's security or crowd management. Developing a reliable profile, therefore, required piecing together not just the characteristics of an individual, but also their capacity for navigating and manipulating a complex, highly public environment, a far more intricate task than profiling in less diffuse criminal landscapes. The role of human error, both by potential perpetrators and by those tasked with park oversight, also warrants consideration. In a high-pressure environment like Universal Studios, where thousands of employees are engaged in diverse, often demanding tasks, lapses in vigilance, miscommunication, or simple oversight can occur. A security guard momentarily distracted, a staff member failing to report an unusual observation, or even a procedural breakdown in communication between different departments could inadvertently create the conditions necessary for such a tragedy to unfold. Now consider how this applies when you face the overwhelming sensory input of a theme park. The constant noise, the visual stimulation, the rapid pace of activity. It's a scenario where even the most diligent individual can experience a moment of reduced awareness. The investigation would have had to meticulously examine not just deliberate malfeasance, but also the subtle, often unintentional ways in which the park's operational framework might have been exploited or compromised. Moreover, the sheer scale of Universal Studios as a physical location introduces a significant variable. Envisioning the park not just as a collection of rides and attractions, but as a contained city, complete with backstage areas, utility tunnels, and vast, often underutilized service corridors. These less visible, less frequented zones, while crucial for the park's functioning, also present potential avenues for concealment or transit that are not readily apparent to the average visitor or even to standard security patrols. The investigation would have inevitably delved into these hidden networks, exploring how they might have been utilized to facilitate movement, evade detection, or even serve as temporary holding areas. The architectural complexity of such a venue, designed for spectacle and immersion, could paradoxically offer a degree of anonymity to those with nefarious intent, especially if they understood the park's infrastructure intimately. The discovery of the locked room, after 2 decades of silence, immediately shifted the investigative paradigm from retrospective analysis to proactive exploration. This wasn't merely about re-examining old evidence. It was about uncovering a potentially untouched cache of information. Imagine a time capsule, sealed away from the elements and human interference, holding secrets that could rewrite history. This room, hidden within the operational heart of Universal Studios, represented such a capsule. Its very existence suggested a deliberate act of concealment, a calculated effort to sequester something significant from the initial widespread searches. The implications were vast. Had this room served as a staging area, a temporary holding space, or perhaps even a repository for evidence that was never meant to be found? The meticulous, almost surgical nature of its concealment hinted at a level of premeditation and forethought that intensified the gravity of the disappearances. It implied that the perpetrators possessed an awareness of the park's infrastructure that went beyond that of a casual visitor, suggesting an insider or someone with intimate knowledge of its operational blind spots. This new physical focus provided investigators with a tangible objective, a concrete space to meticulously analyze for clues that might have been overlooked in the broader, more diffused initial investigation. Furthermore, the psychological implications for the families and the public were equally profound. For 21 years, the mystery had been a nebulous, unquantifiable void. The discovery of a physical, hidden space offered a sliver of tangible hope, a concrete location where answers might finally reside. This shift from abstract uncertainty to a physical locus of investigation could, paradoxically, intensify the emotional stakes. It meant that the truth, whatever it might be, was now potentially within reach, making the waiting period even more agonizing. Consider the feeling when a long-lost relative is finally located. The anticipation of reunion is often more intense than the years of wondering. Similarly, this locked room, while potentially holding grim truths, also represented the closest the investigation had come to a breakthrough, a focal point that could either confirm the worst fears or finally offer a sense of closure, however painful. Building on this, the forensic challenges presented by a room sealed for 2 decades are unique and formidable. Unlike a crime scene fresh with the scent of recent activity, this space would bear the patina of time. Dust layers, subtle shifts in building materials, and the slow degradation of organic matter would all need to be meticulously accounted for. Imagine an archaeologist carefully excavating a centuries-old tomb. Every grain of sand, every fragment of pottery is significant and must be analyzed within its temporal context. Similarly, forensic specialists would need to differentiate between evidence pertaining to the disappearances and evidence simply resulting from the room's prolonged disuse. This requires advanced techniques, such as specialized chemical analyses, to detect latent residues that might have escaped casual observation, or sophisticated imaging to reveal subtle disturbances in dust patterns or floor surfaces. The very air within the room, if not properly managed during entry, could contain microscopic clues, residual DNA, airborne particles, or even unique volatile organic compounds that might link back to the events of 2002. Conversely, the potential for this room to have been a meticulously planned trap or staging area cannot be overstated. Its hidden nature suggests an intent to control access and observation. This could mean that the room was equipped with specific items intentionally left behind or used during the events that are not found elsewhere in the park. Think of a magician's secret compartment backstage, designed not just for concealment, but for facilitating a specific illusion. This locked room might have served a similar purpose, providing the perpetrators with the necessary tools, cover, or control to execute their plan. The nature of its contents, therefore, would be paramount. Were there personal effects, tools, restraints, or perhaps, chillingly, nothing at all, suggesting its primary purpose was simply to facilitate passage or concealment without leaving a direct trace? The absence of evidence, in this context, could be as significant as its presence, pointing towards a highly professional and cautious perpetrator. Now, consider how the discovery of such a room, particularly within the highly regulated environment of Universal Studios, raises critical questions about internal oversight and potential complicity. For 21 years, a space within the park's operational infrastructure remained unknown or unacknowledged. This begs the question, how was it overlooked? Was it truly forgotten, or was its existence deliberately suppressed? The security protocols of a major theme park are extensive, designed to account for every square foot of operational space. The fact that this room could remain hidden for so long suggests a significant lapse in internal auditing or, more disturbingly, a conscious effort by someone within the organization to keep it concealed. This introduces a complex layer of potential internal investigation, exploring not just the external perpetrators, but also the possibility of internal knowledge or assistance, however unwitting or deliberate. The narrative impact of this discovery is immense. It transforms a cold, abstract mystery into a tangible, unfolding investigation. The focus shifts from generalized speculation to the specific forensic analysis of a confined space. This allows for a more detailed, scene-by-scene exploration of potential clues. Imagine a detective meticulously dusting for prints in a single small room versus trying to analyze an entire sprawling amusement park. The locked room offers a concentrated point of inquiry, a contained environment where the passage of time might have preserved crucial details that were lost to the wider park. This localized focus allows for a deeper dive into the minutiae, the subtle anomalies that could hold the key to unlocking the truth behind the 14 disappearances, providing a narrative engine that drives towards resolution, however uncertain that resolution may be. The contents of the locked room, once painstakingly catalogued and analyzed, began to paint a picture far more nuanced than mere opportunism. Forensic examination revealed traces of specialized cleaning agents, not the standard industrial supplies used throughout the park, suggesting a deliberate effort to sanitize the space after its use. Now, consider how this application of non-standard cleaning compounds might point to a perpetrator with a specific, perhaps even professional, understanding of forensic countermeasures. This wasn't the hurried wipe-down of a panicked individual. It was the methodical erasure of evidence, akin to a meticulous laboratory procedure. Furthermore, microscopic analysis of dust particles within the room indicated the presence of unique mineral compositions not indigenous to the park's immediate vicinity, hinting at materials brought in from a specific external location. Imagine discovering a single, exotic pollen grain on a sealed document. It immediately suggests the document's journey and potential origin point, far beyond its current resting place. This seemingly innocuous detail served as a crucial breadcrumb, guiding investigators to explore geographical areas beyond the immediate vicinity of Universal Studios. Building on this, the architectural anomaly of the room itself presented a fascinating puzzle. Its dimensions and construction, while ostensibly functional, contained subtle irregularities that suggested it was not part of the original design blueprint. Instead, it appeared to have been retrofitted or concealed behind existing structures, perhaps during a later phase of park expansion or renovation. Now consider how this architectural subterfuge implies a deep understanding of the park's construction phases and potential blind spots in oversight during periods of significant structural change. It's like finding a hidden passage in an old castle, not carved during its initial construction, but added later by someone who knew precisely where to breach the existing walls without compromising the overall integrity. This suggested that the individual or group responsible may have had access to detailed construction plans or had intimate, long-term knowledge of the park's evolving physical landscape, potentially spanning years or even decades. Consequently, the psychological profile of the perpetrators began to evolve beyond that of a simple abductor. The deliberate concealment, the use of specialized cleaning agents, and the architectural manipulation pointed towards a level of sophistication and planning that suggested an organized effort rather than a spontaneous act of violence. Think of a chess grandmaster meticulously planning a sequence of moves, anticipating every counter-move several steps in advance. This wasn't about seizing a fleeting opportunity. It was about executing a complex strategy with a clear objective. This elevated level of planning suggested a potential network or an individual with significant resources and a profound understanding of security vulnerabilities. The investigation began to consider possibilities that extended beyond lone offenders, exploring the potential involvement of groups with specialized skills or access. Conversely, while the room offered a wealth of new data, it also presented its own set of challenges in terms of interpretation. The very act of concealment meant that the evidence within was likely curated, intended to either mask the truth or to serve a specific, unknown purpose for the perpetrator. Now consider how this selective preservation of evidence differs from the chaotic, often accidental trail left at a spontaneous crime scene. It's the difference between finding a discarded, crumpled note versus a carefully typed, redacted document. This deliberate curation meant that investigators had to exercise extreme caution, distinguishing between what was intentionally left behind and what might have been inadvertently missed or overlooked by the perpetrators themselves. The room was a carefully constructed narrative, and deciphering its true meaning required an equally discerning approach, separating the intended story from the underlying reality. The meticulous forensic examination of the locked room yielded further unexpected insights, focusing on biosignatures that defied simple explanations. Beyond residual DNA, advanced spectral analysis detected trace amounts of exotic fungal spores and specific pollens not native to Florida's subtropical climate, nor commonly found in the park's meticulously maintained botanical displays. Now consider how the presence of such unusual biological markers suggests a deliberate transportation mechanism. These weren't spores carried in on a visitor's shoe. They were indicative of materials brought from a distinct geographical or ecological niche, possibly a specialized agricultural area or even a remote natural preserve. This pointed towards a perpetrator or group with access to or knowledge of environments far removed from the bustling tourist destination, hinting at a broader operational radius than previously conceived. The implications were that the perpetrator's activities extended well beyond the immediate confines of Universal Studios, suggesting a carefully orchestrated operation with logistical planning that spanned significant distances. Furthermore, the room's internal structure revealed evidence of recent yet subtle modifications that predated the 2002 disappearances, but were clearly not part of the park's original construction. Forensic archaeologists identified microscopic tool marks consistent with specialized, non-standard excavation equipment, suggesting that the space had been clandestinely expanded or altered from a pre-existing utility conduit or forgotten storage alcove. Imagine a hidden compartment within a seemingly ordinary piece of furniture, its existence only revealed by the faint outline of its seams and the unique wear patterns on its edges. This architectural subterfuge implied a prolonged period of clandestine activity, a patient, methodical intrusion into the park's physical fabric. The investigation had to reconcile this with the park's rigorous construction and maintenance schedules, raising questions about how such extensive yet undetectable modifications could have occurred without raising any red flags among the numerous oversight bodies. Consequently, the psychological profile of the individual responsible began to incorporate elements of extreme patience and a profound understanding of systemic vulnerabilities. The sheer temporal investment required to clandestinely alter structural elements within a high-security environment suggested a long-term objective, not a spur-of-the-moment crime. This wasn't merely about access. It was about the ability to operate undetected over extended periods, potentially integrating their activities into the park's regular maintenance or construction cycles. Now consider the dedication required to meticulously plan and execute such modifications without detection, akin to a deep-sea diver carefully exploring a vast dark ocean floor, relying on specialized equipment and an intimate knowledge of currents and pressure. This level of sustained, clandestine effort indicated a perpetrator driven by motives that transcended immediate gratification, hinting at a deep-seated agenda or a highly specialized operational capability. Conversely, the analysis of faint electromagnetic residue within the room presented a perplexing anomaly. While modern surveillance technology often leaves detectable traces, the patterns observed here were faint and inconsistent with contemporary devices used in 2002. Instead, they bore a closer resemblance to older, less common signal amplification technologies, some of which were experimental or associated with niche communication networks. Now think about discovering an ancient manuscript that, upon closer inspection, contains annotations in a script that was believed to have been obsolete for centuries. This incongruity suggested that either the perpetrators were employing outdated or highly specialized equipment, or that the room had a prior history of clandestine use predating the 2002 events, with residual signatures lingering from earlier activities. This introduced a temporal complexity, suggesting the possibility that the disappearances were part of a longer, more elaborate sequence of events, or that the perpetrator possessed an unusual technological repertoire. The forensic analysis extended beyond the immediate physical evidence to encompass the temporal sequencing of events, a critical but often overlooked aspect of complex investigations. By cross-referencing microscopic wear patterns on certain surfaces with the estimated degradation rates of specific chemical residues, investigators were able to construct a preliminary timeline of the room's usage. This wasn't a simple matter of dating. It involved understanding the sequence of actions. For instance, the layering of dust over certain spills, but not others, indicated that some contamination occurred after the primary event, but before the room was permanently sealed. Now consider how this process resembles piecing together a palimpsest, where layers of writing are superimposed, and the task is to discern the original text beneath the subsequent additions. This temporal mapping allowed investigators to hypothesize about the order of operations. Was the room initially used as a temporary holding area, then meticulously cleaned, only to be re-entered later for a different purpose, leaving behind a different set of trace contaminants? This granular temporal reconstruction provided crucial context, suggesting that the disappearances might not have been a single, monolithic event, but rather a series of carefully orchestrated actions occurring over a period, potentially involving multiple entries and exits from the hidden space. Further complicating this temporal puzzle was the discovery of faint, almost imperceptible microfractures in the sealant used around the room's hidden entrance. These fractures, when analyzed under high magnification, indicated stress points consistent with repeated, albeit gentle, pressure applied over time, rather than a single forceful breach. Think of how a river over centuries carves a canyon, not through a single cataclysmic event, but through the persistent, cumulative action of flowing water. This suggested a pattern of intermittent access, reinforcing the idea that the room was not just a passive repository, but an active component in a larger, ongoing operation. The implication here was that the perpetrators were not simply using the room as a one-time dumping ground, but as a recurring operational base, a nexus point for their clandestine activities. This raised further questions about the frequency of these entries and exits, and whether any of these movements might have coincided with periods of heightened park activity or, conversely, periods of reduced surveillance. Building on this, the investigation also delved into the park's historical infrastructure records, seeking to understand the room's origin and its potential integration into the park's original design or subsequent renovations. While initial blueprints showed no record of such a space, cross-referencing with maintenance logs and construction permits from different eras revealed a curious overlap. There were periods of significant, yet vaguely documented structural work in the vicinity of the hidden room, often attributed to utility upgrades or foundational reinforcements. Now, consider how this situation is akin to finding an undocumented annex in a historical building. Its existence is undeniable, but its purpose and origin remain obscure, requiring a deep dive into obscure archives and forgotten records. This suggested that the room might have been intentionally obscured or incorporated into the park's infrastructure during a period when oversight was potentially less stringent, or when such modifications could be more easily disguised as routine maintenance. The challenge lay in sifting through years of bureaucratic documentation to pinpoint the exact phase of construction or renovation that could have facilitated its creation or concealment. Consequently, the analysis of air filtration systems adjacent to the hidden room provided another layer of insight. While the park's main ventilation shafts were designed for passenger areas, a smaller, seemingly isolated system serviced the immediate vicinity of the concealed space. Forensic analysis of the filters within this secondary system revealed a unique particulate signature, distinct from the general park environment. This signature included trace elements of industrial solvents and specific metallic dusts not typically found in public areas, but often associated with specialized manufacturing or restoration processes. Imagine finding the faint scent of a specific, rare perfume lingering in an otherwise nondescript room. It immediately suggests a deliberate, albeit subtle, attempt to mask or alter the ambient olfactory profile. This pointed towards the possibility that the room was not just a passive hiding place, but an actively managed environment, potentially used for tasks that required controlled atmospheric conditions or the mitigation of specific odors, further deepening the mystery of its intended purpose. The investigation into the locked room and its associated evidence took a significant turn when forensic linguists began analyzing faint, almost imperceptible inscriptions found etched into the room's concrete floor. These weren't casual graffiti. They were deliberate markings, seemingly created with a hardened tool, forming a complex, non-alphabetic symbol system. Now consider how deciphering such a system is akin to an archaeologist encountering an unknown hieroglyphic script. The visual patterns hold meaning, but unlocking that meaning requires identifying recurring elements, contextual clues, and potential underlying structures. This symbolic language, unlike any known terrestrial script, suggested a highly specialized form of communication, possibly developed by a group with unique cultural or operational needs. The recurring motifs, some resembling abstract geometric patterns and others resembling stylized biological forms, hinted at a symbolic lexicon related to navigation, categorization, or perhaps even a coded record-keeping system. The sheer precision of the etchings, despite their seemingly primitive appearance, indicated a steady hand and a clear intent to embed these symbols permanently. Building on this discovery, the analysis of residual chemical traces within these etchings revealed an unexpected complexity. Interspersed with the concrete dust were minute quantities of organic compounds that, when cross-referenced with advanced chemical databases, aligned with specific rare botanical extracts known for their psychoactive or mnemonic properties. Imagine finding a faint, almost ethereal scent clinging to ancient scrolls. A scent that, when identified, points to the very plants used by scribes to enhance memory during long periods of transcription. This suggested that the symbols were not merely markers, but potentially served as mnemonic devices, designed to be activated or understood in conjunction with the ingestion or inhalation of these specific botanical agents. The implication was that the room served as a training or indoctrination space, where individuals were being conditioned to associate abstract symbols with altered states of consciousness, potentially for purposes of memory enhancement, indoctrination, or the creation of specialized operatives. Furthermore, the investigation into the park's historical acquisition records unearthed a curious footnote regarding a small adjacent parcel of undeveloped land that was briefly considered for expansion in the late 1990s, but ultimately deemed geologically unstable and unsuitable for development. This parcel, though never formally integrated into the park's public-facing design, had undergone preliminary subsurface surveys. Now consider how this seemingly minor detail could represent a critical piece of the puzzle, akin to discovering that a seemingly solid wall in an old building conceals a hidden access point or a structurally compromised section. The instability cited in the reports was vague, lacking specific geological data which raised suspicions. It was possible that the term was used as a convenient, albeit vague, pretext to mask a more deliberate, clandestine operation that involved modifying or utilizing the subsurface of that land, potentially connecting it to the hidden room via undocumented tunnels or conduits. Conversely, the examination of the park's peripheral security logs from the period surrounding the 2002 disappearances revealed a series of anomalous, low-frequency radio transmissions originating from the vicinity of this undeveloped parcel. These transmissions, initially dismissed as background noise or interference from industrial equipment, were reanalyzed using advanced signal processing techniques. The patterns observed were not random. They exhibited a structured, pulsed rhythm reminiscent of early forms of coded communication or signaling protocols. Think of trying to discern a message from a series of rhythmic clicks in the deep ocean. The pattern itself, not just the sound, holds the key to understanding its origin and purpose. This suggested that the undeveloped land, and by extension the hidden room, might have been part of a larger, coordinated network, utilizing discrete communication channels that operated beneath the threshold of standard security monitoring, further complicating the initial investigation by creating a blind spot in the park's otherwise comprehensive surveillance grid. The investigation into the unique symbolic language discovered within the locked room introduced a profound challenge: its apparent lack of any terrestrial linguistic precedent. While forensic linguists meticulously documented the recurring motifs and their geometric variations, the absence of any discernible phonetic or semantic parallels with known human languages rendered direct translation impossible. Now consider how this situation mirrors the discovery of an alien artifact with an unknown operating system. The physical object exists, its internal logic is evident, but understanding its function requires a complete paradigm shift. The symbols, rather than representing words or sounds, appeared to function as abstract relational operators, possibly denoting concepts like proximity, duration, or sequence within a multidimensional framework. This suggested a communication system designed not for narrative or descriptive purposes, but for operational command or data mapping, perhaps related to the park's complex infrastructure or the movement of individuals within it. The sheer regularity of their application, etched with unwavering precision, spoke to a codified system, likely developed and utilized by a highly disciplined and organized entity. Furthermore, the peculiar affinity of these symbols with the trace residues of psychoactive botanical extracts presented a compelling, albeit speculative, avenue of inquiry. While the exact species of flora responsible for the residues remained unidentified, their known effects in traditional or experimental contexts often involved heightened pattern recognition, synesthesia, or the induction of eidetic memory states. Think of ancient shamans using specific herbs to access altered states of consciousness, enabling them to perceive patterns or connections invisible in their ordinary waking state. This suggested a deliberate synergy between the symbolic language and the chemical agents, implying that the room served as a nexus for a form of cognitive conditioning. The symbols, viewed through the lens of chemically induced perception, might have unlocked a deeper layer of meaning, transforming abstract patterns into actionable intelligence or ingrained operational protocols. This wasn't simply about learning. It was about fundamentally altering the perception and cognitive processing of those exposed to the environment. Consequently, the investigation began to entertain the possibility that the symbolic system and the botanical agents were integral components of a sophisticated training or operational framework, possibly designed to cultivate individuals capable of navigating complex, high-stimulus environments undetected. The recurring geometric forms might have represented navigational vectors or operational phases, while the stylized biological motifs could have symbolized stages of adaptation or transformation. Now consider how this applies when you encounter a highly specialized training manual for elite soldiers filled with cryptic diagrams and performance-enhancing protocols. The symbols and the chemical agents working in tandem could have been intended to imprint specific responses and navigational skills directly into the subject's subconscious, enabling them to operate with a level of efficiency and discretion far beyond conventional training. This suggested that the disappearances were not random acts, but potentially the culmination of a process, the successful integration of individuals into a clandestine operational network. Conversely, the challenge lay in distinguishing between intentional symbolic encoding and the potential for random patterning influenced by the chemical agents. While the regularity of the etchings strongly suggested deliberate design, the possibility of chemically induced misinterpretations or subjective associations could not be entirely dismissed. Imagine an art critic interpreting abstract paintings. While the artist's intent is paramount, the viewer's individual perception and emotional response inevitably shape their understanding, sometimes leading to interpretations far removed from the original vision. The forensic linguists and botanists had to meticulously differentiate between objective structural elements of the symbolic system and the potential for chemically mediated perceptual distortions. This required rigorous statistical analysis of symbol frequency and distribution, alongside controlled experiments to understand the potential impact of the identified botanical compounds on human cognition and perception, ensuring that the interpretation of the symbols was grounded in evidence rather than conjecture. The park's meticulous record-keeping, usually a strength for operational efficiency, paradoxically became a challenge in deciphering the room's true purpose. While detailed blueprints existed for public-facing structures and even backstage facilities, The clandestine nature of the room meant it was absent from all official documentation. This absence itself became a clue, suggesting that its creation or integration occurred during a period of significant yet poorly documented infrastructure evolution within the park. Now consider how this mirrors the detective trying to reconstruct a crime scene where the perpetrator deliberately removed all identifying marks. The very lack of evidence forces a deeper examination of the surrounding context for subtle hints. Investigators had to scour historical maintenance logs, utility access permits, and even geological survey data from decades prior, searching for any anomaly that might explain the room's existence without appearing on standard architectural plans. This involved sifting through bureaucratic minutiae, looking for discrepancies or unusually vague entries that might conceal unauthorized modifications. Furthermore, the examination of the park's historical acquisition records unearthed a curious footnote regarding a small adjacent parcel of undeveloped land that was briefly considered for expansion in the late 1990s, but ultimately deemed geologically unstable and unsuitable for development. This parcel, though never formally integrated into the park's public-facing design, had undergone preliminary subsurface surveys. Now, consider how this seemingly minor detail could represent a critical piece of the puzzle, akin to discovering that a seemingly solid wall in an old building conceals a hidden access point or a structurally compromised section. The instability cited in the reports was vague, lacking specific geological data, which raised suspicions. It was possible that the term was used as a convenient, albeit vague, pretext to mask a more deliberate, clandestine operation that involved modifying or utilizing the subsurface of that land, potentially connecting it to the hidden room via undocumented tunnels or conduits. This presented a new investigative vector, directing attention towards the subterranean layers of the park's periphery. Consequently, the analysis of air filtration systems adjacent to the hidden room provided another layer of insight. While the park's main ventilation shafts were designed for passenger areas, a smaller, seemingly isolated system serviced the immediate vicinity of the concealed space. Forensic analysis of the filters within this secondary system revealed a unique particulate signature, distinct from the general park environment. This signature included trace elements of industrial solvents and specific metallic dusts not typically found in public areas, but often associated with specialized manufacturing or restoration processes. Imagine finding the faint scent of a specific, rare perfume lingering in an otherwise nondescript room. It immediately suggests a deliberate, albeit subtle, attempt to mask or alter the ambient olfactory profile. This pointed towards the possibility that the room was not just a passive hiding place, but an actively managed environment, potentially used for tasks that required controlled atmospheric conditions or the mitigation of specific odors, further deepening the mystery of its intended purpose and suggesting a level of operational sophistication beyond simple concealment. Conversely, the investigation into the unique symbolic language discovered within the locked room introduced a profound challenge: its apparent lack of any terrestrial linguistic precedent. While forensic linguists meticulously documented the recurring motifs and their geometric variations, the absence of any discernible phonetic or semantic parallels with known human languages rendered direct translation impossible. Now consider how this situation mirrors the discovery of an alien artifact with an unknown operating system. The physical object exists, its internal logic is evident, but understanding its function requires a complete paradigm shift. The symbols, rather than representing words or sounds, appeared to function as abstract relational operators, possibly denoting concepts like proximity, duration, or sequence within a multidimensional framework. This suggested a communication system designed not for narrative or descriptive purposes, but for operational command or data mapping, perhaps related to the park's complex infrastructure or the movement of individuals within it. The sheer regularity of their application, etched with unwavering precision, spoke to a codified system, likely developed and utilized by a highly disciplined and organized entity. Reflecting on this journey so far, we've navigated the intricate pathways of a mystery that has long defied easy categorization. The initial threads of disappearance, woven into the vibrant tapestry of a place designed for escapism, have gradually unfurled to reveal deeper, more complex patterns. The very environment that once symbolized carefree joy became for a time a landscape shrouded in unsettling questions, prompting a re-evaluation of safety and vulnerability in public spaces. As we pivot towards the final reflection, consider how the initial shockwaves have subsided, leaving behind a more profound contemplation of the underlying forces at play. The narrative has moved beyond the immediate aftermath, delving into the subtle shifts and enduring implications that resonate years later. In light of these insights, the path forward becomes clearer, not in terms of definitive answers, but in understanding the multifaceted nature of the enigma. The layers of context, the intricate details of operation, and the subtle but significant ramifications have coalesced, transforming a singular event into a complex phenomenon. The exploration has illuminated how seemingly isolated incidents can be tethered to broader societal, technological, and even architectural considerations, creating a rich interplay of factors that shape our understanding of such events. The cumulative effect of these explorations is akin to observing a vast, intricate mechanism where each component, initially appearing disparate, is revealed to be essential to the overall function, hinting at a deliberate design that operates beyond the immediately visible. Drawing these strands together, we see a convergence of inquiries that moves us toward a broader perspective. The focus has shifted from the singular event to the systemic forces that may have enabled it, and the enduring questions it continues to pose. As we stand at the precipice of closure, the journey has underscored the persistent human drive to seek understanding, even when faced with the profound silence of the unknown. The exploration has laid the groundwork for a final contemplation, not merely of what happened, but of what such enduring mysteries reveal about our world and ourselves. The insights gathered have built upon each other, creating a more nuanced and comprehensive view, preparing us for the concluding perspective. The lingering echoes from that fateful year at Universal Studios, a place once synonymous with unburdened delight, serve as a profound testament to the enduring power of the unknown. What began as a series of bewildering disappearances within a seemingly secure sanctuary has, over 2 decades, evolved into a complex tapestry of inquiry. We have traced the desperate searches, the gnawing uncertainty, and the eventual startling discovery of a hidden space, a silent witness that refused to yield its secrets easily. This journey has illuminated how even the most meticulously crafted environments can harbor unseen vulnerabilities, and how the pursuit of truth can lead us down unexpected paths, uncovering layers of complexity we might never have anticipated. The initial shock has long since faded, replaced by a deeper understanding of the intricate interplay between human ingenuity, environmental design, and the persistent shadows that can fall even in the brightest of lights. The narrative we have explored is not merely an account of lost children, but a broader reflection on how unanswered questions can shape our perception of safety, trust, and the very fabric of our shared spaces. The locked room, once a symbol of profound mystery, ultimately became a focal point for a more nuanced understanding of the forces at play. Its discovery compelled a re-examination of security protocols, architectural integrity, and the subtle, often overlooked operational rhythms of a vast public institution. The forensic trails, from specialized cleaning agents to enigmatic symbolic etchings, spoke not of simple opportunism, but of a calculated, sophisticated operation that transcended the immediate event. This deeper dive revealed how human intention, when coupled with meticulous planning and an intimate understanding of systemic vulnerabilities, can create narratives that are both chillingly effective and remarkably elusive. The journey has shown us that true comprehension often lies not in the dramatic climax, but in the patient, rigorous deconstruction of every subtle detail, every anomaly, and every silent implication. The core message that emerges is not one of definitive resolution, but of the persistent, vital importance of curiosity and the relentless pursuit of understanding, even when the path is fraught with uncertainty. Ultimately, the enduring impact of this saga lies in its capacity to remind us that the world is a place of both wonder and complexity, where the veneer of the ordinary can sometimes conceal extraordinary depths. The Universal Studios mystery, in its unfolding, serves as a potent allegory for the countless enigmas that permeate our lives, urging us to look beyond the surface, to question assumptions, and to appreciate the intricate web of factors that shape our reality. The true practice begins now, to carry this spirit of persistent inquiry into our own lives, to remain vigilant, and to understand that even in the most familiar of settings, there is always more to discover, more to learn, and more to comprehend. The hope is that by embracing this continuous quest for knowledge, we can not only better understand the shadows of the past, but also illuminate the path forward, fostering a more informed and resilient engagement with the world around us.